to talk about Plotly. Plotly is a library that creates interactive graphics. Several of you have asked me over the course of the semester if we're going to do anything interactive, like when you click on a dot, can you see things like that? The reason that we have been focusing on creating images, static graphics, is because they can be used in any content management system in the world. Creating an image and putting an image into a blog or a website or anything like that is super easy. Pretty much every website supports that, where interactive graphics become a lot more difficult. The other part of interactive graphics that's a problem is most people interact with content now on their phones, and you have limited ways of interacting with that on your phone versus on a desktop. For instance, if you create something called a hover state and you hover over a dot and it pops up the information about that, how do you make that work on your phone? You can't hover over something on your phone and make it work. So mostly that's why this is an introduction. That's why we're only going to just sort of dip our toes into Plotly. Why Plotly? It's actually really simple to use. The verbs and the concepts are very, very similar to ggplot. It's a little bit different. The syntax is slightly different, but the concepts are all the same. You're going to be pretty comfortable with it. And I want to show you that it's possible that you can do this. There are downsides, and we've talked about those, but there are also upsides too. So the how we will do over in the screencast. And here we are back in our studio. So talked a little bit about Plotly. One of the other things about interactive graphics is interactive is one place where the distance between getting something online and doing something that you want can be really, really, really super vast. The amount of time that it goes from super easy to mind-bogglingly difficult is really, really short with interactive. It gets complicated really fast when you're talking about trying to choreograph interactive elements. And there are some things that are easy for beginners to grasp, like Plotly, but you're pretty limited in what you can do with Plotly. If you're looking at some of the stuff like the New York Times is doing with these massive visualizations and things like that, that gets a lot harder, a lot faster. And the other thing is publishing these things can be really difficult. You have to have server infrastructure that you have to maintain, and software that has to run these things. And if you can find a company that will do that for you, you got to pay them a ton of money. Where what we've been doing with static images, I mean, anybody can do that, and it's cheap and it's simple. So Plotly is free to use, but there becomes pay involved when you start getting a bigger audience, when you start wanting to do a little bit more. But for what we're going to do, it's free and pretty easy to use. So you'll start out by installing the library the way we have done all of this other stuff. So install packages and then Plotly in quotes. We'll load it same way we've done everything else. So I've got my tidyverse loaded up and I've got Plotly loaded up. Makes life much easier. So we're going to be looking at a data set from the 2019 baseball season, RIP 2020 season, at least so far. We'll see how much of it we're going to get, if any at all. But the data is linked in the chapter. This is a set of batting statistics we're going to start with. It's got, well, here, we'll just take a look at it. It's got some basic baseball stats. You've got the season, the name, the team. 2 teams means they were traded. So you've got games, plate appearances, at bats, hits, singles, doubles, triples, home runs, RBIs, all that stuff that you're accustomed to seeing, basic box score stuff. But then it starts getting into more advanced metrics, walk percentages, wins and runs, or weighted runs creation, different things, weighted on base averages, weighted run created plus. These metrics are what you hear people talk about when they talk about sabermetrics, and they talk about, sort of advanced stats in baseball. They're all there. There's links in the text to explain some of them if you're curious what they're really all about. But this data set only contains players who had 190 plate appearances. So we're going to look at batting averages versus weighted runs created plus. And it's weighted run created plus is just a metric of how influential offensively a batter was in terms of their lineup and their team. And batting average you are familiar with. So we could take this data, since it's season summaries, we got one row, one player. We could just go ahead and plot this out. So we can create a scatter plot using the weighted runs created plus on the x-axis, the batting average on the y. We'll create a quick fit line to go through there and throw some labels on it. And there's what it looks like. So these things are pretty related to each other, not surprisingly. Obviously, you are more influential on your baseball team if you actually are hitting the ball, so thus your batting average would be better. But batting average is not a great predictor of these things, as we have found over the years. So we could add more to this. We could clean this up. We could, I'm mostly interested in who are these three people out here? Who are the outliers? Who are the ones who are generating a lot of runs based on their batting average? And what's really interesting with this one is being below the line. So you're actually not hitting for average as well as other people, but you're creating a ton of runs. So underperforming this line is actually more interesting, because something's going on there that makes this really interesting. So there's these three dots out here I'd really want to know. We could create a data frame that highlighted them, and we could illustrate that and all that, but sometimes it gets kind of tedious. The other thing is, maybe I want to know about some of these other people. Maybe I want to know who these poor souls are down there, or some of these guys way up here who have high batting averages but aren't generating enough weighted runs created plus. Interactives allow you to sort of explore however you want to do that. So this is where Plotly comes in. To create a basic Plotly, you just invoke the library, plot_ly. We're going to pass it the data frame that we're sending it, so data equals batting. And then here it's pretty simple. It's just the same scatter plot idea. You've got X is our weighted runs created plus. Now what's different with Plotly is you have to include this tilde before everything. So tilde and then WRC plus, because there's a plus in it, you got to put backticks around it. Tilde average. Average does not have any unfortunate characters in there or illegal characters in there, so it doesn't need backticks around it. And in this case, color, we're going to make the color the division, like what division does that player come from. And you get this. And if I hover over these with my mouse, I can see who these people are. But do you know who that person is who's creating 13.4 weighted run created plus and has a 138 batting average? I don't. I can't identify players based on their batting average. Same with these out here. I have a pretty good idea. One of these in the AL West who's really, really, really good is Mike Trout. So, but I don't know which. In the NL Central, I know who this is because of previous classes. But baseball nuts can probably figure out pretty quickly who that is. But that's not a useful way to go around that. So Plotly allows us to create hover info boxes. So we've got our first line here, it's the same, but now inside of this parenthesis here, we're going to create this hover info. And our hover info is going to include text. And that text is this. We're going to use this paste function to paste these things together. And this is where, again, you taking the 130s and taking Web 1 and Web 2 that you may have hated, but it helps you out a ton here, because what this is HTML. So this first bit is the label. So we're giving some just like words here. So the word is player. And then after player will be the name of the player. Now the name comes from our data frame right here. So the first one will be Edwin Encarnacion, Yonder Alonso, so on and so forth. So that's where that name comes from. This BR is a break in HTML, so it's going to move this down a line, and we'll have the label of weighted run created plus. Oops, not what I want to do. And then we'll include that stat there. A break, next one, what their batting average is, what their team is. So there's the team that comes from right there. And then the division. If we run that, now we have the same scatter plot, but when I hover over it, there's Mike Trout. Knew he was one of these. There he is. The NL Central guy, by the way, that was Jordan Alvarez at the Houston Astros. Cheaters. Kristen Yelich is the other one, the Brewers. Down here, Chris Owings. Yikes. Jeff Mathis. Eek. Lewis Brinson. Oh, these are just all-stars all the way around here. So, if I want to see who some of these other people are, so Twins player Donovan Solano of the Giants, Wilmer Flores of the Diamondbacks, so on and so forth. I can just sort of roll around here and see who these people are and figure out what's going on and who they are and things like that. So that's the benefit of an interactive graph. I can add also some titling, same way that we've done other things around here, and the pipe character does work. So I can pipe in this layout bit down here where I'm going to add in a title. I'm going to relabel my axes a little bit cleaner, and like for instance, take out the backticks, which doesn't look very good there. I run that. Here's my title, which gets a little funky. Here's a perfect example of how tough interactives get. You've got a title on here, but now when you hover over it, your toolbar drops in front of it. That's pretty ugly. How do you fix that? You don't really. There's not really a lot of ways to go about doing that. We did fix the label, so the backticks are gone, and everything's looking a little bit better, but that's not great. So the other thing that I want you to do for this is I want you to actually publish your chart on Plotly. So to do that, you're going to have to get a login. If you're in the chapter, there's a link to that in there. And the other thing that's most important is you're going to need an API key. So here is what it looks like when you go to sign up. So if you click sign up, you put this stuff in there and you're good to go. I have a sign up. Yes, I should. There we go. And my password is god awful. And I'll sign in. And we're back with actually working Plotly, Chart Studio. So the most important bit here is going to be going under here to Profile. Come on. Oh, sorry. Settings. Under API keys. Now mine will look a little different and yours may look this way. If you get this without having to generate a key right away, hit regenerate key, and you're going to copy that key, and in your code you have to run this, where it says enter your Plotly username in here. You're going to put your username. So mine is Matt Waite, so I would put Matt Waite. And then enter your Plotly API key. You're getting that from here, where you have to hit regenerate key and copy whatever this is from there. If you don't see letters and characters here, that's a problem. You need to have something that's not ... You've got to actually have characters. If you're copying ... you're doing it wrong. And you'll paste that bit in here. You're going to run that. It's going to save into your environment, the setenv here. So it's actually saving to a file invisible to your machine, and when the request is made to Plotly, it will work. It'll just read that key. You don't need to do that ever again. So you just do that once, and that will be done. So to publish a chart, we're going to go back to what we had before, but what we're going to do is we're going to save it to an object. In this case, I'm saving it to an object called P. I can name this whatever I want. P just made sense because it's, Plotly. Then to finish it, we run this API _create. I give it the object that I want called P, and a file name of MLB Offense 19. And that matters because when I go back to Chart Studio, please don't crash. Gosh, dang it. Let me go to my profile. Here's my MLB Offense 19. MLB Offense 19 is where that file name comes in when you pass it here. So if all goes well, if it all worked correctly, a browser is going to pop up automatically with your chart in it. And mine looks like this. And there it is. And I can hover over my players, and there's Nelson Cruz or Fernando Tatis Jr., Anthony Rizzo, so on and so forth. So that's how to get a Plotly up and running. Holler at me on Slack if you have questions, and good luck.